Cowboys still the favorite to come out of the NFC East after kind of being that team the last 2 years. I know they didn't win back in 2020, but were one of those teams we thought could. Obviously, the injury to Dak Prescott, played a big part of that, but they get back to the top this past season. So as you look at it here, Jim, is this the Cowboys division at this point?
No, not at all. I think they actually took a step back this offseason. When you lose an Amari Cooper, they've still got to show me the CD Lamb is number one.
Yep.
When you lose out on Randy Gregory, um, who's going to be that complement? Who's going to be that other guy up front to really get it done with DeMarcus Lawrence? Um, there are just some questions that I have, and as that offensive line gets older, I'm not sold on the Cowboys, and I think the Eagles. If Jalen Hurts does take that next step, with all of the draft capital they have, um, with the fact that they were not that far out of it last year in terms of that division,
Right.
I think I would keep my eye on the Eagles more than I would the Cowboys, although we know the Cowboys are going to generate all the headlines and the coverage. But
Yeah.
I would look at Philadelphia.
And we'll get it your grade for the Cowboys offseason here in just a moment. But Bridget, as you look at this, does it still feel like the Cowboys division to you?
I think this is one of my favorite divisions just because it's always such a scramble. And like, what was it, a couple of years ago when nobody was winning, and it's like you have to pick a winner from this division. How? Because all the teams were so bad. I kind of agree with Jim. I think, and I'm going to say something a little crazy here. I do agree that if Jalen Hurts, pulls together, that the Eagles team can be really good. This is going to sound absolutely insane and people are going to come for me. I am a fan of the Giants' new GM, and I do believe that he made a couple very intelligent moves during this offseason. What can he do, with their draft picks during the draft? I don't think we've seen Daniel Jones play his best football. I might have a little bias. I covered him at Duke, but I don't know. I would love to see a total turnaround. I don't think it's going to happen. This is me being super optimistic, but there are some pieces. If they get an O-line fixed, can they make a splash? I don't know.
Yeah, look, I think that's a fair point. I mean, look, when the owner comes out and says we've done everything possible to screw up our quarterback, you'd like to see them now do the opposite and put him in a position to succeed, and perhaps then we see him thrive. One way or another, I feel like we're going to know a lot more about where the Giants feel about Daniel Jones when this season is over, and we'll get your grade on the Giants here in just a moment, Bridget. But let's go back to where we left off, Jim, at the top of this division last year with the Dallas Cowboys. Disappointing early exit from the playoffs as a result of the 49ers coming into AT&T Stadium and getting the win there. But how would you kind of touched on all the departures then. What kind of grade does that translate to for the Cowboys offseason?
How corny can I be here, Rhett? How
As
about
much as you want.
a big D?
Oh,
See?
It's too early.
It's too early. I'm sorry. I haven't had my coffee yet, but then I don't drink coffee. So, but anyway, no, I give them a D, Red. I don't get some of the moves that they've made. Letting an Amari Cooper go, I know he was at 20 mil a year, but as we've seen in the wide receiver market now, that's almost becoming a bargain for where this is going. And the guys that they are now going to rely on in that passing game, I'm not certain that they're true number ones yet. In the time in on those occasions where CD Lamb had to be that guy when Amari was out, he didn't perform well. Um, and you can go back and watch the film and see times that Amari was open and Dak didn't get him the ball for whatever reason. So that's why we heard Amari kind of speak out some last year, which was so out of character for him. I'm not buying into Dallas at this point. I'm really not. The other thing that bears watching there is the way that Jerry Jones has handled this coaching situation. He in so many words has said to Mike McCarthy, I don't have full confidence in you. Yes, you're my coach, but Dan Quinn is the one that Jerry made a point of saying, I want to make sure he's here in 2022. And then we have the whole Sean Payton thing hanging over everyone's head beyond this season. So I just think there's too much inner turmoil, if you will, and questions that I can't buy into it. I
I
know
hear you on that.
I'm
I hear
rambling,
you
but
on that.
I don't buy it.
Let's then move, Bridget, to the Washington Commanders, who, as we all remember, won this division back in 2020 and came pretty close to knocking off the eventual Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Bucks. Did not go as well this past season for Ron Rivera's crew. And this offseason marked by the big trade for Carson Wentz. How do you grade their moves?
So I wrote down C, but I might have to give him a C plus because while we forget, they also got a name this offseason. So congrats to the Commanders. The Carson Wentz move puzzles me. From what I've read, and we've reported on NFL Network, I do believe they were trying to push for Russell Wilson, and that came up short. But then you go and get Carson Wentz. Is he an upgrade over Taylor Heineke? I don't know. He ended the season 5 straight games, less than 230 passing yards. I don't think he's the answer. I think the Commanders, too, have had this spot at quarterback that they have not been able to address over the past couple of years. It kind of haunted Ron Rivera. He dealt with the same thing in Carolina, and then felt like he came to
You talking about the
Washington
ghost of Kirk Cousins haunting the Commanders? Is that what we're talking about here? Okay.
I think that's what we're talking about. I think that they do have some good pieces. They were able to bring back some stars on offense, but you're gonna need a quarterback who can throw to some of these players like Terry McLaurin. And I don't see Carson Wentz being the answer, being the guy that can win the division for Washington.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? But if you're the Commanders, you better go all in on it, right? I mean, you spent the 2 and a 3 to go get him, so let's figure out a way to support him. We'll see if we can do that.
But
with
can you support him if you're in the locker room, Rhett?
You better. I mean, you got no other choice here at this point. But I understand your point. The way that the Colts talked about his departure there, it does make you wonder. Let's move, Jim, to the Philadelphia Eagles and a grade that you would give Howie Roseman for some of the moves that he's made here.
B plus. And the only reason it's not an A is because I want to see what they do with their draft capital. First of all, they were able to re-sign the players that they wanted to bring back, which is so important in the NFL, I believe. Too many times we think the unknown is more valuable than the known. And when you have players who have performed for you, you know what they're about, they understand the culture of your organization, your locker room, etc. I think it's important to maintain some sense of continuity. So I like that they've done that in terms of restructuring some of the guys to bring them back. And then making the trade to give away or trading one of their 3 first-round picks for more draft capital next year, in terms of another first-round pick next year and beyond, I think was just smart. So when I look at all the moves that Howie Roseman has made, I'm all in on this. That I think it's a B plus and potential A depending on how they use their draft capital.
And the fact that they were able to turn one of their first-round picks, essentially one of their 3 first-round picks this year, into a future 1, a future 2, and an additional third-round pick this year. Really nice work kind of maneuvering around the draft board here with that trade they made with the New Orleans Saints. Let's finish up this division here, Bridget, with a grade on the New York Giants.
I'm going to give them a C. I think, the Giants, one of the biggest problems with them is the salary cap and the space, the money that they don't have. And I think Joe Shane, the new GM, was able to make some moves that were cheap and bring in some veterans. He brought in some veteran O-linemen, and, that provides some stability, and they weren't that expensive. I think, again, it's one of the problems that has been haunting them for years. How are they going to fix that offensive line? How are they going to protect Daniel Jones?
Great point.
I think they have the pick 5 and 7, unless trades have already started in the draft. I think they have.
As of this moment, you're correct. 5 and 7.
They have the ability to make, to draft somebody who's going to make an immediate impact and fix some of those holes that we're seeing. The other question is still up in the air: is Saquon. Is he going to be healthy? We forget how fun he is a player to watch and such a good running back. if he can stay healthy, I think that totally changes the dynamic of this team.
Yeah, I think you're right. You touched on the draft situation there as we kind of switch gears here. I think the Giants' offseason essentially hinges on what they do in the draft
Yeah.
because of the nature of their salary cap and how strapped they were in that regard. And so that's where their big improvements are going to come this season, especially with high priority picks there, 2 inside the top 10 at 5 and 7. I see maybe one of the best corners in the draft, and Sauce Gardner as being an option there at 5 or 7. And then I'd love to get the best offensive lineman off the board there
Yeah.
too. So I think 2 huge needs for the New York Giants. Jim,
They
as
were
you look at
at,
go ahead, Bridge.
I was just going to say they were present at Ike Ekwonu's pro
Yes.
day when I was there. And I know that, if he's still on the board at offensive tackle, that'd be pretty, I think he's going to be a really good player for years to come. So that would be a good,
you're not alone.
good spot for him.
You're not alone in that assessment. I 100% agree, as do most of our draft experts here at NFL Media. Jim, let's then go to the Dallas Cowboys, who, have gotten really good players each of the last 2 years in CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons. I mean, one was, of course, the Defensive Rookie of the Year, but weren't necessarily at positions of need at the time. They were best players available when the Cowboys were on the clock. And Jerry Jones alluded to the fact that, if there's a player like that, there at 24, they do that. They'd follow that same strategy once again. But where else could you see, what other positions could you see the Cowboys kind of making a priority when we get to April 28th?
Oh, I think offensive line is definitely a priority for them. Look, they needed to upgrade before Connor Williams signed with Miami and La'el Collins was released, in my opinion. So they've got a lot of age there from that unit that was so dominant for so many years. So, again, I think football teams are built inside out. I think that Dallas hopefully recognized that from the success that they had while this unit was together. When we talk about how dominant, Tyron Smith and Zach Martin and all those guys were together. So I would like to see them go there. The other thing I still think they need help with is in their secondary. I think they can get better there. Look, for all of the plays that Diggs made, he also gave up a number of plays as well. So
Right.
I think they need more consistency there overall. And look, we talk about this all the time, Rhett. Does a pass rush make a secondary, or does a secondary make a pass rush? And I still believe Dallas also needs help up front when it comes to pressuring the quarterback.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I'd be really curious if David Ojabo is on the board there at 24 after the ruptured Achilles tendon. I know he's not, you can't count on an immediate impact, but man, with Randy Gregory gone, you would love to eventually, put him out there and perhaps pair him up with DeMarcus Lawrence, a really good player at that point. But yeah, I could see offensive line certainly being a priority here for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, Bridget, let's go back to you for the Commanders here. We're sitting at number 11 overall, not necessarily out of the quarterback market if their guy is there to maybe develop behind Carson Wentz, but otherwise, is it all about supporting him there with that pick in the first round?
Yeah, I didn't even have quarterback really on my list of what they should go for 11, but that is a good point, interesting point you make. But I would say wide receiver. I think you need somebody that he can throw to, and somebody I think the way that the draft is going, they could get a top wide receiver even at 11 that can make a splash. They also lost 2 safeties in the offseason, so I think that's a position that they wouldn't be opposed to going. I don't know if their 11th pick would be the right place to go. And then cornerback as well to get some support on defense.
Yep. I like that. And as far as receivers go, I really like Drake London as a nice complement to what they already have there. Big, tall, physical wide receiver, big target, contested catches. Think about the way that Carson Wentz plays the game, oftentimes off schedule, sometimes a little bit risky. I think Drake London's a guy that can make up for some. Yeah, that is just trying. I think Drake
Rhett Lewis, the biggest Carson Wentz fan. I didn't know this.
Hey, come on. All right, let's finish up the draft priorities here, Jim, with the Philadelphia Eagles, who have now gone down from 3 first-round picks to 2 first-round picks. They'll go at 15 and 18 after their trade with the Saints. I think they can go in a lot of different directions here. How do you see it?
I'm going to say edge from this standpoint. Last year, they were 31st in sack rate. So I think they've got to find a way to get more pressure on the quarterback. Look, offensively, I think that they have started to put pieces around Jalen Hurts. never hurts to have even more weapons. But I agree with you. I think they can go a number of different directions, but at some point you got to make stops. And at some point, we know it's a quarterback driven league, so you're going to have to be able to consistently pressure. And so, from that standpoint, for a team that was 31st in sack rate last year, I'm going to say go get a pass rusher,
Yep.
at
Yeah, a
least
guy like George.
with one of those two first round picks.
Yeah, a guy like George Karlaftis out of Purdue might be a choice there at 15, and whereas at 18, I'm wondering if maybe they see the future at center. If this is
Exactly.
Jason Kelsey's last year with Tyler Linderbaum, one of the best center prospects we've had in recent years coming out there. So a couple of names just to consider there for the Philadelphia Eagles. Bridget, Jim, fantastic work for us previewing and resetting the NFC East and NFC West rosters. Certainly appreciate your time, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.